Hi, welcome to Lucy Talks, a safe space to talk. And today I will be interviewing Brandon Violette, who is also my husband. Hi, Brandon.
Hi. Hi, Lucy.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
And I want to talk a little bit about your career because I think it's very interesting. What were you like in high school, and when did creativity sneak up on you?
Well, in high school, I was not a very good student at all. Uh,
Were you a cholo?
no,
Oh.
no, I wasn't cool enough. No, I was hanging out in the classrooms of the teachers playing D&D and Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, anime club.
Uh,
Um, and I was interested more in reading and in computer games and stuff like that, and than doing my homework. And so I was a lousy student, and I graduated a semester early in high school. So instead of 4 years, I graduated in 3.5 years because I took community college classes like at the same time because I just wanted to get out of high school, and I knew that I wasn't going to go to a nice university or a good school out of it because I didn't have the grades. So I thought the best way to move forward is just to go to community college and get out early, and then just continue going to community college after high school. So that's what I did.
and when did creativity sneak up on you?
It was almost always there. So one of my earliest memories was watching Rocco's Modern Life, the
The
cartoon on
cartoon,
yeah,
yes.
on Nickelodeon, the 90s Nickelodeon show. And but specifically the making of, which was showing the creator of the show, Joe Murray, in his studio making the cartoon. And that's one of my earliest childhood memories, is watching that making of that they would show in between the commercials. And after that, I was anyone who asked, "What did you want to be when I grew up?" I said cartoonist. So it was always from that. And then as I got older, I got into filmmaking, and I thought, to be a writer, you had to be smart, and I didn't get good grades. So therefore, I wasn't smart. And, of course, it's not that simple, but that's kind of what you're taught in school. If you get good grades, you're smart. If not, you must be dumb. And so I kind of put writing aside, and I got into filmmaking. And it wasn't until years later that I would try, I would fall in love with film and go to school for screenwriting and writing for the screen, writing for movies. And so the long answer to your question is the creativity snuck up on me as a kid watching cartoons.
And didn't you have a neighbor who was a writer?
Oh, yeah. So I had a neighbor, and growing up, at this point, I was probably, well, I think I was in second grade, and like two or three houses down, there was this like couple that moved in, and I found out somehow that he worked in animation. So he wasn't a writer, but he did some sort of like visual effects, or he did something on cartoons, whatever it was that allowed him to buy a house. So he was doing okay. Um, and I remember like my mind was blown. And so one day before school, I got some hotel stationery paper that I had in my room from some trip that we went on as a family. And I got this notepad of paper. And I told my mom, if I asked her if I could do this. And I walked a couple houses down, and I knocked on their door. And he opened the door. And I said, "Can I have your autograph?" And that's all I said.
Oh.
and he goes, and I think my mom was probably at the driveway or like watching, and he goes, "Oh, okay, I'm not famous or anything." And he wrote me an autograph, and I wonder if I still have it in the closet of my childhood room at my
Your
parents'
mom.
house. But he wrote me an autograph, and I brought it to school that day. I showed all my friends. They're like, "This was a guy in animation," and like it was just a cool thing. Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping like uh, I remember his name. I remember what he looks like, and I'm hoping someday I'll
Have you
run
ever
into him.
sent him an email?
I think I found him one time on LinkedIn. That like the professional kind of Facebook, right? Like the social networking site, and he never got back to me. But I don't know if we weren't connected, so I don't know if he ever got that message.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's really him. I'm pretty sure it was him, but I don't think he ever got the message. So I got to try a little
Oh.
harder. Be like 30 years later, here's that
You take
kid.
a picture with his name on,
Right.
like,
Yeah,
here you
yeah,
go.
yeah,
I'm that
yeah,
kid.
yeah. Exactly. I remember his name, his last name, like what he looks like. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If it's true, if it's him, he's like a pretty big guy over at DreamWorks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I'll have to try a little harder. Like, hey, I'm that kid. Remember? Yeah.
Were there people that believed in you early on, or did you have to fight for validation?
Yeah, my parents always supported me. They never said, "Oh, it's going to be hard if you try this," or they never said anything like that. They always just said, "Yes, you could do it." And they would, growing up, like when I first saw the Rocko's Modern Life cartoon, and I wanted to be a cartoonist. That was an artist. I didn't know really about writers yet, and so I would draw comic books, and so they would always buy me like how to draw comic books or how to draw cartoon books and sign me up for drawing classes. I was always taking art classes as a kid. So they really pushed me in that direction because they saw that I was interested in that. And so a lot of credit to them for doing that. I think later on, you get told how hard it is by just, high school. Like I remember one time I had the principal of a past principal who came over to my parents' house once, and I told her I was studying screenwriting, and she looked at me with this like sad look in her eyes, like, oh, you are gonna just like you are doomed. Because I don't think I I don't know. I just saw some look in her eyes that was like, "Oh, you poor soul! Like you're gonna get woken up, and it's not gonna be pretty." So I remember certain looks I would get, but my folks, for whatever reason, always encouraged me and said, "If you think you could do it, you could do it."
How did the scholarship to China come into your life?
So after community college, I went to Cal State Northridge, just up here, CSUN, and I was studying screenwriting. That was my major, and I was getting close to graduating. And at the time, I was like getting meetings with some like feature screenplays that I wrote. So not yet animation; it was like feature scripts. And I got these different general meetings around town at different production companies, and I uh, couldn't see a job. Like I couldn't see any of these people hiring me. Like a general meeting is they like your work, and then you go in and meet with them, and it's hopefully planting some seeds for like working together in the future. That's like most of where your time goes when you work in entertainment. It's just meeting people. But I couldn't see any of these meetings like paying off into a job. Like, and I was close to graduating, and so I thought, well, I love screenwriting, so maybe I should get a master's in humanities. And I only knew humanities because I heard Steve Jobs say it in a commercial once about how Apple existed at the intersection of technology and the humanities. Like it was like a word that he said.
Dude, you
And I,
and Apple, I
yeah.
swear.
And I was like, humanities, that sounds good. And I thought I was still living at home, and I was going to college down the street, basically from where I grew up. And so I felt like I wasn't a broad enough person. I felt like I was for a writer, I felt like I hadn't lived very much. And so I thought humanities would be a way to open me up as a person. And then if I'm a more broader person, I'll be a better writer. And so that was my plan. And I was getting close to graduating. And then one random Saturday afternoon, I was in the parking lot of a bank. Like I just got into the bank, and I came out and I saw I had an email from a film professor at CSUN. He was a Chinese film professor. And it said, China Scholarship Opportunity. And I looked at it and I read the email, and it was basically saying that CSUN has this thing called the China Institute, and they send students every year to China to study whatever they want to study. Like if you want to study finance, you go to a university where their specialty is finance. And there's a film academy in Beijing, and so they wanted to send it to the film students who were at CSUN so they could maybe send a couple over there. And I read the email, and it was like one of those life moments where you see into the future. Like I instantly knew I was going to China, and I had never thought about China before. I didn't even know what China was other than the Great Wall. Like I didn't know anything. I couldn't picture it. At least Japan was like, I kind of could picture Japan because of like anime and certain pop culture things. But China, I was like, I have no idea what this is. But I thought that this was what I wanted the humanities to do for me. The master's degree in which was to make me a broader person. And if I'm a broader person, I'll be a better writer. So I saw this and I thought, I'm going to China. I applied. Long story short is I get the scholarship and I say no to the humanities because that's like, no, thank you. I'm going to China. This is what this is the humanities, but in real life. And so I graduated to CSUN in June, and September I was on a plane to Beijing. And over the summer I had done like a little bit of studying Mandarin. I found a Mandarin tutor out here in Santa Clarita to just like help me like teach me how to learn so I could have some foundation. But yeah, I went over there a couple months later and was, yeah.
Was it hard to learn the language?
Yeah, it was very hard. I felt very self-conscious and kind of silly when I first started making this, like when I was sitting with a tutor and here I am and I was making these, foreign sounds, right? And it felt really weird, but also very cool too, because the language, it's not like English or Spanish. They're like a Latin language. So there's a lot of similarities, but something like Chinese it's not a Latin language. They're kind of pictures almost, and they don't have letters. They have words, and the way they're drawn is so interesting and unique. And so it felt like it activated a different part of my brain. And so as hard as it was, eventually you find a logic and a structure to the language. And so it's really, it's exciting when you start to get into it a little bit, but very difficult. If I wasn't living there, I don't know if I'd ever remember anything.
And were the classes in Chinese and Mandarin, or were they English?
So this was an English language, or sorry, a Chinese language program. So you're there at the school and you're taking Chinese classes in the morning and you're learning how to read, write, and listen. And then in the afternoon, you could do your film stuff and you can collaborate with students and so in my class, it was almost like a student from every continent. I had a student from Korea. I had a student, someone next to me from Germany, from, Belgium. It was all kinds it was students from all around the world coming here to study filmmaking. And the way to study filmmaking in China is first by picking up the language, just so you can communicate and so you can not go hungry. And
You're like, where's the food?
yeah, where's the bathroom?
Where's the
Where's the
bathroom?
food? The food. Asking for a taxi, and also trying to figure out how to say your school name so you can find your way back to So all that basic stuff. Yeah, because you're living there, so you're living at the international dorms, and so it's like that's your life for however long you're there.
Was there a moment in China where you questioned everything and the moment where the universe said yes to you?
A moment in China where I questioned everything, especially in the beginning, because you don't have a routine yet. You're in a foreign country. I didn't know anyone at first. I was the only student on the plane to go over there. And so it was a rocky start. I remember I got off, my dad, gave me advice, right? Like he was like, when you get to the airport, buy water. And if something doesn't feel right, like it's not right, like don't do it. Like giving fatherly advice because, his oldest son's leaving to go to some foreign land. And I remember I got to China, I got at the airport, getting off the plane, going through customs, like looking around, like what's going on? I get out of the airport and some guy immediately says, taxi, taxi. And I go, yep. And I just follow this guy to where he's taking me. And I notice he has all these tattoos and suddenly I'm like, he doesn't really look like a taxi driver. And then I get to his car and I'm like, that's because he's not, that's just a normal car. But he's like helping me get in. And I'm just like a total sucker of like, okay, yep. And I'm just going because someone is pointing. And I'm like, so my dad's advice of like, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. I'm like, I'm just going along with it. And of course I didn't buy water. So I was really thirsty and I didn't know how to ask for anything. And I had the school address in Chinese written down so I could like show him where I wanted to go. Cause at this point, I barely studied Chinese. I'm not communicating with him at all really. And so I get in the car and he put my suitcases in the back, and I'm like, I have my backpack of like money, my like Chinese currency, and I'm like kind of holding it. I'm in the back seat, and he's in the front, and he's driving, and of course I have no idea if he's driving me to the school or if I'm like being driven to somewhere where I'm going to get robbed because here's everything I have and I don't know anything. And what if he drops me there and there? And it started to rain, and I'm just like thinking all these, you think all the ways this could go wrong. And he's on the phone, and I'm like, oh, he could be on the phone with whoever's going to meet him, and I'm going to get robbed, like And then he's still on the phone, and he's like, and we're driving, it seems normal, like kind of crazy China traffic, but normal. And he's still on the phone, and I started to relax a bit because I thought, if you're going to rob someone, that's a long conversation. Like he's probably just talking to whatever, right? A normal conversation. So I start to relax, and I'm like, okay, I think it's probably going to be okay. And we get to the school, but like the way the road is set up, it's like there's like a median in the street, and then there's like opposing traffic, and then there's the school. So we stop in the middle of the street, and there's like a fence that's like kind of you know down from being trampled. So he stops at this fence in the median, and he's like, "Oh, there it is." And I see the entrance of the school, and I'm like, "That, yeah." And so I get there, and he's helping like throw my suitcases over the fence, but in a helpful way, but just in an also like kind of frantic, like there's traffic, and I'm like, "Oh God!" And so he's throwing the suitcases, and I give him the money, and he makes sure that I'm okay, and then he waves and he drives off, and I go into school, and so that was it ended up being kind of a crazy taxi ride, but also just like totally fine. And that's like normal. And he was there helping me. And, you know, ultimately, like looking back, China is a very safe place, and you don't usually have anything to worry about. But of course, you don't know that in the moment. So I get to school, but it's like 6:37 a.m. And because I had an overnight flight, right? And so I'm walking with my three suitcases, like two suitcases and a backpack, and I'm like rolling it into school, and I'm looking around, and I think I thought there was going to be like, welcome foreign students or something, like a sign that goes this way if you're new. And there was not any of that. And I'm looking around like, where do I even go? And it's a big place, right? And of course, it's all in Chinese. And so I'm looking around, and I asked some Chinese students like where, because I see them like walking by, and of course I'm a white guy, so they point like down, down there, right? Like, I'm okay, and I'm walking down, and at this point, part of the school is under construction, and so I'm going through the mud with my suitcases, and I'm like looking at this building, and I think it's there, and I go through the building, and then I get into the lobby, and there's a guy sleeping at the desk, like in a cot. And I'm like looking, and at this point, I don't have Wi-Fi, I don't have phone signal. Of course, the phone's not working, and the SIM card I brought wasn't working. So I have no way to like say, "Hey, I made it," and I'm like, all that stuff. I can't look up anything, and so I'm like at the lobby, and this guy's sleeping, and I just like wake him up, and I'm like, "Hi," and he was in a bad mood, and of course I got there so early, like the office wasn't even open, but what was I supposed to do? So he checked me in, and it took a while, and I showed him like all my documentation and all this, and eventually I get a room, and I go upstairs, and I end up running to other foreign students. So like another guy from like New York was like there, and a guy from some other part of Europe. And so eventually I started to, get settled in, of course, but like I'll just never forget like the first couple of hours there was just so like uncomfortable. But looking back, it was like, of course it's exciting, but man, that was like,
The
yeah, wow.
unknown.
The unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just how grateful you are to get a cup of coffee, and how grateful you are to get some Wi-Fi so you could like feel connected to something because you're still so uncomfortable, and just the little things like, ooh, I got a bed, and I can put my suitcase here, and there's my little desk over here, and then because you're sharing rooms with people, or one on like with one other person. And so just the little stuff was like getting that going was huge. But yeah, that initial arrival was rough.
What was your first break in Hollywood, and how did it feel when they said yes?
Ooh, I think my first break was my first writing credit. So coming back from China, I long story short is I got a job at this production company called Hasbro, which they make toys, feature films. They do Transformers. They do all these shows. They have an animation department. I ended up getting a job there and worked my way up to production assistant on a show called Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighter. Stretch Armstrong is based. I don't know if you remember this toy from the '90s that it was like a wrestler guy, and you could pull him, and he would like it was like gummy arms and kind of. Anyway, it was just like popular toy. They wanted to reboot the toy for like the new generation with like and make him kind of cool, and so anyway, the animated show was a superhero show based on the toy, like a refresh of the toy. And so I got a job as a PA on the show. So I was working for the head writers. I was learning the animation pipeline, and about halfway through the first season, the head writers asked me to write an episode. Like when I first got hired, they knew what I wanted to do and why I was there, and they said, always be writing because there might be a time we call on you to write an episode. And I thought, okay, they know why I'm here. I'm going to shut up. I'm not going to like, hey, can I do this or that? Like they know why. So I'm just going to work hard and listen and do everything I can to make that happen. And so they called on me to write an episode halfway through the first season. And that was huge. And, in fact, behind me here is the framed cover of that script, and I had everybody in the studio who helped me sign it, and so there's a bunch of signatures, and I have it framed on the wall, and that was a big moment, and so that was the big break. To see your name on screen, and to see your name on a script cover page is a big deal. That's what every writer dreams of. And so that was the big break. Yeah.
And what did you feel when you saw it on TV?
Seeing it on TV, it was really special.
Did you
special.
cry?
I don't think I cried.
Oh.
No. but it was a really cool thing. It was really cool because it's like you see your name up there, and like you go back to like the kid who asked his neighbor for an autograph because he worked in animation.
You're so cute.
And it's like somehow it all like comes back full circle, you know? And then the trick is to do it again and again and again, because that's how you have a career and that's how you make a life. You don't make a life on one script. And so as good as it feels, got to do it again. It's the second job, it's the third job, it's the fourth job, and that's how you build. And you know, and so yeah, it's like it's great, and then it's like, okay, can I do it again and again? That's the life. That's the entertainment industry life.
Looking back, what job did not look like a breakthrough but came back around?
So I mentioned Hasbro Studios, where Stretch Armstrong was. Before I was a PA on the show, when I got the first job I got coming out of China. So I'll say it this way. I came back from China. I was ready to work full time. I did not want to be a student anymore. I loved the experience, but I was ready to not be at a university. I'm like, I'm ready to work full time. Came back, and for 6 months I couldn't find a job. And I thought having China on my resume might, make me stand out. And of course, you never know if anyone even reads your resume because there's so much going on. 6 months, nothing. Then I found a temp agency up here. And a temp agency helps place you at different companies for a temporary amount of time. So if someone needs an assistant for like 3 months, they call a temp agency and they're like, oh, we got a perfect person who knows, and that's a good way to like meet people and get introduced. And you hope that temp job, people like you, and then you'll meet someone who gives you a full-time job. So a temp agency is what it is. And so I called this temp agency. I said, I'm trying to find a job in entertainment as like an assistant or something. And they said, we don't really have entertainment companies, but sometimes we do. And I said, well, sometimes is better than no times because for this past 6 months, I haven't had any luck. So I go in and I take a computer test and they do all the paperwork and I get signed up with this temp agency. And now they're going to start looking. The next day, they say, we have this company called Hasbro that, and they're looking for a temp. And I thought, Hasbro, that's like, like I mentioned, they do Transformers. They make films. They make toys. Like this is,
You're like, I made it.
yeah. I'm like, whoa. I said, yeah. So I go in to interview and I walk in and I should have mentioned that in China, I had this like goal of going to a big company. Like I had this like vision of, okay, I know what kind of job I need. It's a big company, and then the people there will help me find the next opportunity. Because I thought China was a big place. I met a lot of people. I thought I saw certain strengths in myself, and I thought, okay, I need to be in a big environment, and that'll help me move forward, like not a small production company. It's a weird thing, but I had that in mind. I walk into Hasbro, and I'm like, this is that place that I imagined. It's a big company, and I was getting some just good vibes. And I interview, and I think it goes well. I get in the car, I'm driving home, and I call the temp agency to tell them like how it went, and I couldn't get through. And so then they call me, and I said, "Yeah, I was just trying to call. I had the interview." And they said, "Yeah, we know. They called us. They want you to start tomorrow."
Wow.
I was so excited, and the job ended up being exactly what I had like envisioned, which was the job was a temp. So I met everybody in the company because I was like everybody's assistant. If you needed like, Perrier in this executive's fridge, you would call me and I would bring the drinks, I would stock the fridge, I would stock the snacks. I would every day that it was a toy company, there's tons of packages coming, like prototypes of the latest toys they were working on, and they all were delivered in the kitchen. I would put them on my cart and I would wheel the cart around, and I knew everybody by name not long after that. So I was like, oh, this person, here's your pack. I would put it on their desk. And so I literally was like everywhere in the company, like every day. I would be here, there. And eventually people would ask you, because it was such a great place, what are you here to do? Like, what do you really want to do? And you say, oh, I want to be a writer. And so they would say, you should talk to this person. And so eventually it happened exactly like I'd envisioned, where people would help me a lot. They would nudge me, like, go talk to him, go talk to her. And then eventually the Stretch Armstrong show got greenlit. And that, of course, someone had recommended me, and that led to that job, and that made all the difference. And so it was that chance temp agency that was like, we don't really have it, but sometimes, and turns out, boom, next day, Hasbro. Then I go and interview and next week. And then on the way home, boom, you got the job. And it was like 6 months of nothing. And then it happened quick.
What were the hardest parts for you?
I think the hardest parts of any journey is when you feel that you're reaching a ceiling. So like when I like when I was in university and I was taking those meetings with my scripts, and those meetings were very exciting in the beginning because it's like I'm going to this movie company and they read my script and they want to meet with me. And then they call it like the water bottle marathon because you could take so many meetings that all you get out of it are just a bunch of water bottles. Cause like the joke is like you go into any of these production companies and they're like, can we get you some water or a drink? And you say water and they give you bottled water. So it's like all you have to show for it is just a bunch of bottled water. And so after a while, you start to say, well, where's this going to lead me? I'm just taking a bunch of meetings, but nothing's happening. So at first it was exciting, but then it's like, where's this going to go? And then in China, when I was there for almost 2 years, which was exciting, amazing. And then you start to ask yourself, what am I going to do with this? Because I'm not making any money and I'm here to be a better writer because I still love that. And to be a broader person, a better writer, I have a goal, but how am I going to get to that next part? And if I just stay in a classroom the rest of my life, it's not going to happen. So I think the hardest parts of just looking back on that part of my journey or any journey is when you know that a change is needed and you're not sure where or when or how to make that happen. I think those are the hardest parts because there's a degree of uncertainty. You know that the path you're on is just it starts to feel like you're gonna go in circles. And so that's a different way to answer the question because yeah, every script is hard. Every no that you get or rejection is hard, and you learn that it's part of the game. You learn that every writer, everyone, film like you get 1,000 no's, and that's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but you've learned to live with that. But the hardest parts are when you know this path isn't working, and I don't know what to do next, and so you realize you're hitting a plateau, and you're like, I got to do something. I got to make a next move, and so in that case, it was a master's in humanities, and then China came. Perfect. That makes total sense. That's a big move. I'm going to do that. And then when China, you feel it's coming to an end. And then you're like, okay, I need this big company. I'm going to go all in on working full time and I'm going to make this part of my story. And you go back to LA and then 6 months, nothing's happening. And then it's like temp agency, sure, I'll try it. And then boom, Hasbro comes. You're like, yes, this is what I had envisioned. But you don't know until you're in it. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the parts of every journey where you realize you're going to need to make a change and you don't know how or what, but you feel it. Those are the hardest parts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but at least you followed your gut because you knew something was going to come out of it. So you continued to do what you believed in yourself could do.
Yeah, I did feel that I had gone all the way out there to pursue writing. Don't give up now. Like it's not worth settling yet. Like, don't accept the second place thing. Go for it. Yeah, yeah.
If you could go back to Brandon, who didn't feel quite ready yet, what would you tell him?
I could tell him, but he's probably not going to listen. So, because it doesn't work that way. I would probably tell him that he can relax a little bit and to not put so much pressure on yourself. But it doesn't work like that. And he wouldn't listen. So
Did it your way.
Yeah.
You did it your way.
That's right. That's right.
What was a rule you broke that made everything click?
Accepting failure on my terms. That if it's much better to make a wrong decision if it's your decision than make a wrong decision because you listen to somebody else. And if that person is giving you advice and you're not so sure that you should take it, but you do it anyway and you fail, that's worse than I think this is what I should do and I'm going to do it. Because you need to be able to rely on yourself in life. And nothing teaches you that like being away from everyone. And in my case, living overseas, away from family and friends. And I had this thought out there that if I die here, no one is going to help me. Like if I'm in trouble, I can't call my parents because the soonest they could get here is like tomorrow, if they hop on a plane right now. And what that starts to do is, well, if I don't have anyone telling me not to do something, you have yourself and you start to listen to yourself. And so it came with quitting drinking. That was something where I listened to myself and I accepted, okay, other people might not want to hang out with me anymore because they don't have a drinking buddy. And whatever ripple effects are, that's okay. If people don't want to talk to me, certain ones or whatever, anything that happens as a result of this decision is okay. And therefore, it's fine because it's my decision. And so, and also the idea of coming home, when to come home from China, because the scholarship was almost like you could renew it probably forever. Like I remember when it was time to like re-up again or figure out what was next, they were like, do you want to go to Shanghai and study there? And which is a beautiful, amazing city and all this. There was a way to just keep it going, and which could have been great. But I thought, I don't want to be a student forever. And you can get trapped in like oh, I'm here, I must be doing something, I'm in class. And it's like, you can kind of hide that way too. And so I thought, no, I'm going to make my decision to leave and devote myself to working full time. And I thought, and I remember someone asked me, like, are you done with China? Because I still loved it, but they're like, are you done? And I said, no, I'm just done with this chapter. And this next chapter is out in Los Angeles. And so, again, it was just, I decide when I'm coming home, not anyone else and not anyone. And so I think the rule I break is just fail on your terms and not listening to anyone else.
That's a good one. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
A very, very special one is Cocomelon Lane. So it was a show that I got to co-create with Guy Tobis, who was previously my boss on a Disney show. He was the head writer, and I was the assistant writer, and then became a full-time writer under him. And then he eventually left, but we stayed in touch, and then had this opportunity to collaborate together to put a pitch together for this show. Because Cocomelon was obviously very famous property, and the company was looking to turn that property into a show for slightly older kids. So we had this idea to make it like a Rugrats version of Cocomelon. And so we put that together, and we made 3 seasons of this show. And we talk about like the writing credit at the end of the show on Stretch Armstrong as being a special thing. Well, co-creating this show means my name is in front of the show. And that was pretty surreal to see, like, developed for television by Guy Tobis and Brandon Violette. And that's kind of mind-blowing. Yeah.
Every time I see it on TV, because Esma's watching it, I'm like, wow, that's my man. Like, he did it. Like, he made it.
Yeah, that is something very that's probably my favorite one. And I got to take a big leap to head writer. So it was new responsibility, new show, and it was just very hard, but in the right kind of ways where you come out of it and you're really proud and strong, and the finished product is great. So yeah, that might be the one.
Thank you, Cocomelon, for buying our house. Just kidding.
Not wrong.
So if there's anyone that wants to reach out to you about writing, how can they reach out to you?
LinkedIn, just look up my name, Brandon Violette, or Instagram is Story Series Podcast. I do the podcast for writers and storytellers, and you can reach me there. Instagram, LinkedIn, those are probably the best spots.
Well, husband, I am so proud of you. And I met you at the perfect time. Thank you for coming on the show, and toodaloo.